Okay, so this is January 22nd, 2025. Thank you for staying with me at this point if you're watching this to the end of this book. It's a great book for study. Again, I absolutely recommend that you get it and you get your own copy and you write it up with notes. But before I go to the last chapter, which the last chapter is Midat HaKedushah, the virtue of holiness. It's chapter 26. I do want to point out, if we recall at the very beginning of the book, I said that the book started, the first four letters, the first four words of the book have letters that start each word that spell the four-letter name of God. And the book has 26 chapters, which is the number of God's name. So if we take the Yod, that's 10, the Hey, that's 5, that's 15. Then there's Vav, which is another 6, so that equals 21. And then the final Hey, which equals 26. So everything obviously begins and ends with God. But before we do the last chapter, I wanted to refresh our memory of what this book is based on. And this book is based on a Baraita that's found throughout the Talmud. But specifically, we can cite Avodah Zarah, Daf 20, Amud Beit. So 20b, it says from here, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair said, Torah brings one to vigilance. Vigilance brings one to alacrity. Alacrity brings one to cleanliness. Cleanliness brings one to abstinence. Abstinence brings one to purity. Purity brings one to piety. Piety brings one to humility. Humility brings one to fear of sin. And fear of sin brings one to holiness, or Kedushah. And Kedushah, holiness, brings one to Ruach HaKodesh, the divine spirit of God, which is what we see as like a level of prophecy, a very high spiritual level. And he says that most people do not make these levels in this book. Even if you try your whole life, you're very, very likely of not making it all the way to this last level of Kedushah. But he wrote this book for himself, and he gave it to the world. But the Baraita doesn't stop there. It ends that divine inspiration, or Ruach HaKodesh, Meviah Lidei Techiyat HaMeitim, that divine inspiration leads to the resurrection of the dead. And we all know that is the ultimate destination, the Messianic age, the resurrection of the dead, a time when most of these crazy concerns in life are just water under the bridge. It's meaningless, and only the new era is what has any relevance, and it'll be a world of Torah. So we can turn now to chapter 26, and I'm going to read 26, and then he also wrote an epilogue, which is basically a short explanation at the end. So that's what this last video is going to be. So here we go. Holiness is a twofold process. It begins with worship and it ends with reward. It begins with effort and ends with a gift. The meaning of this is that one begins by sanctifying himself and ends by being sanctified. And this was expressed by our sages of blessed memory in Yoma 39a. A person who sanctifies himself a little is then sanctified profusely. When he sanctifies himself from below, he is sanctified from above. The effort required of a person is that he must separate himself and cut himself off completely from corporality, cleaving incessantly every moment and every hour to the divine. In reference to this, the prophets were called angels, as it says in relation to Aaron, Moses' brother. It says in Malachi 2:7, for the lips of the Kohen will guard knowledge, and they will seek Torah from his mouth. For he is an angel of the Eternal, master of legions. And it states in Divrei Hayamim Beit, or 2 Chronicles 36:16, and they made a mockery of the angels of God. Even when he must deal with material matters that are essential to maintain his bodily existence, his soul should nevertheless not deviate from its sublime cleaving, which recalls the following statement in Tehillim, Psalm 63:9, my soul cleaves after you, your right hand has supported me. However, since it is impossible for a person to achieve this state on his own, for it is beyond his capacity, since he is, after all, corporeal and made of flesh and blood. I have therefore stated that the final stage of holiness is actually awarded as a gift. For man is capable of the initial effort, the pursuit of true knowledge, and the diligent reflection of transcendent matters with regard to the sanctification of deeds. But at the terminus, the Holy One, blessed be He, will guide him along this very path that he so desires to walk, and will rest His holiness upon him and sanctify him. Then his effort will bear success, allowing him to remain continuously in this state of cleaving to the Blessed One. Thus, what nature withholds from him will be provided by the Blessed One's help and assistance, as in the following statement, Tehillim, Psalms 84, verse 12. He withholds no goodness from those who walk in innocence. Therefore, as previously mentioned, they have said, a person who sanctifies himself a little, which refers to a person is capable of acquiring through his own effort, is sanctified profusely, which refers to the aid that the Creator, blessed is His name, gives him, as I have written. Regarding a person who is sanctified through the holiness of his Creator, even his physical deeds truly become matters of holiness. This is illustrated by the eating of sacrificial offerings, which is a positive commandment itself. And they of blessed memory have said in Pesachim 59b, the Kohanim partake of the sacrifice, and in this manner the owners receive atonement. Here I want to call attention to the distinction between one who has attained purity and one who has attained holiness. For one who has attained purity, his corporeal deeds serve only his essential needs, and he himself utilizes them only out of necessity. In this manner, they gain release from the ingredient of evil that exists within all corporality, and they remain pure. However, they have not yet entered the domain of the holy, for if one could manage without them, he would then be better off. One who has attained holiness, however, who cleaves to his God constantly, and whose soul walks about immersed in thought regarding those matters that are of a transcendent nature, and his love for his Creator and his fear of Him, is considered as if he were walking about before the holy, before the eternal in the land of the living, the world to come, while still in this world. And this kind of person is likened to the tabernacle, the Beit HaMikdash, and the altar, and this is related to what our sages of blessed memory have commented in Bereshit Rabbah 82:6. It says, God's presence left him. Means that the patriarchs themselves are the divine chariot. So God's presence left him. That's Bereshit, Genesis 35:13. In a similar fashion, they have said the righteous themselves are the divine chariot. For the divine presence dwells with them as it dwelt within the Beit HaMikdash. Consequently, the food that they eat is likened to a sacrificial offering that is placed on the fires of the altar. And whatever offerings were brought to the altar must have unquestionably undergone a tremendous spiritual elevation, since they were being sacrificed before the divine presence. The enhancement that they received as a result of this was so great that their entire species throughout the world was blessed accordingly. As our sages of blessed memory explained in the Midrash, in a similar vein, the food and drink that is eaten by a holy person undergoes a spiritual elevation as though it had actually undergone sacrifice on the altar. This is similar to what they of blessed memory have said in Ketubot 105b. Whoever brings a gift to a Torah scholar is regarded as if he had brought Bikurim, the first fruit offering. And they said in Yoma 71a, fill the throats of Torah scholars with wine, in place of the wine libations. This does not mean that the Torah scholars should be chasing after food and drink, heaven forbid, filling their throats in the manner of a glutton stuffing himself. Rather, it must be understood within the context of what I've already mentioned, that Torah scholars who possess holiness in their ways and in all their deeds are truly likened to the Beit HaMikdash and the altar. For the divine presence dwells with them just as it dwelled within the Beit HaMikdash. Therefore, whatever is brought to them is like a sacrifice upon the altar, and filling their throats is in place of filling the basins into which the libations were poured. In this manner, any object in the world that is the Torah scholars, make use of after they have already attached themselves to the Blessed One's holiness, is elevated spiritually and enhanced, since it has served the needs of the righteous. Our sages of blessed memory were referring to this in connection with the stones of that place that Jacob took and placed around his head. Chulin 91b. Rabbi Yitzchak said, this teaches us that they all gathered together, each one saying, let the righteous lay his head upon me, meaning the stones. The stones said this. In summation, holiness consists of one's cleaving to his God to such an extent that in his performance of any deed he will neither detach himself nor stir from the Blessed One. As a result of this, the physical objects that he makes use of will become elevated by his use of them to a greater degree than his decline from his state of cleaving and from his loftiness in the course of using things of his physical nature. But this depends on his constantly focusing his mind and intellect on the greatness, exaltedness, and holiness of the Blessed One until he finds himself truly in unison with the celestial angels, as it were, while still in this world. I have already mentioned that one cannot do this on his own, other than to strive in this direction and to make the necessary efforts. And this can be done only after he has internalized all of the noble virtues previously mentioned, from the beginning of vigilance through the fear of sin. With this he may enter the inner sanctuary. This analogy is based on Vayikra, that's Leviticus 16:3, and succeed. For if he lacks these former virtues, he is like an outsider and one who has a deformity, about whom it was said in Bamidbar, that's Numbers 18:4, an outsider may not draw near. But after one has prepared himself accordingly, and he continues cleaving through powerful love and intense fear, through reflection upon the greatness of the Blessed One and the might of his exaltedness, he will gradually detach himself from corporeal concerns, and in all his actions he will direct his heart to the esoteric dimensions that are found in true communion with the Eternal. And in continuation of this, a spirit from above will be bestowed upon him, and the Creator, blessed be he, will rest his name upon him, as he does upon all of his holy ones. Then he will become truly like an angel of God, and all his actions, even the lowly and the physical ones, will be like the sacrifices in the priestly service. And this you see that the way to acquire this virtue is through continued abstinence and profound analysis of the mysteries of the divine presence and the esoteric dimensions of the world, and through the understanding of the Blessed One's exaltedness and praiseworthiness, until one cleaves to him intensely. He must, furthermore, be able to direct his thoughts while he is engaged in mundane matters, just as the priest would do when slaughtering the sacrifice or receiving its blood or sprinkling it, until the Blessed One's blessing of life and peace is drawn toward him. Anything other than this would make it impossible for him to attain this lofty level, and he is incapably, and he will inescapably remain corporeal, the same as other people. What is of assistance in acquiring this virtue is solitude and a large measure of seclusion. For without disturbances, one's soul can gain in strength and cleave to its Creator. And I want to point out that the idea of hitbodedut, or your personal isolation with God, is a very important. It's a very important thing to take on, and it's just. It doesn't have to. Oh, I'm sorry. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated, but what it does require is you to be very vocal with God about the concerns and the challenges and everything in your life, just as you would speak to, a family member or a friend or something like that. So, the factors that lead to the loss of this virtue are the lack of true knowledge and continued social intercourse. For corporeality corporality finds like company and revives and revitalizes itself, while the soul remains in captivity within, unable to escape its prison. However, when he detaches himself from people and remains alone and prepares himself for his holy inspiration, he is led along the path that he desires to travel. And with the divine assistance that is given to him, his soul will be strengthened from within. It will rule over the physical, will cleave to the Blessed One's holiness, and will be perfected in this manner. From this point, he will be elevated to an even higher plane, that of Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, where his understanding will transcend the limits of human capabilities, and his state of cleaving will permit him to reach such a lofty plane that he will be able to receive the key for the resurrection of the dead, as it was given to Eliyahu and Elisha. This demonstrates the great intensity of his cleaving to the Blessed One. For the Eternal, blessed be his name, is the source of all life, giving life to all living creatures. As our sages of blessed memory have commented in Ta'anit 2a, 3 keys were not placed in the hand of a messenger or an angel, right? The key for the resurrection of the dead, etc., right? Therefore, one who cleaves to the Blessed One ultimately will be able to tap from him even the very flow of life, which, more than anything else, is particularly attributed to him, as I have just written. And that's the way the Baraita of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair ends in Avodah Zarah 20b. And holiness leads to divine inspiration, and divine inspiration leads to the resurrection of the dead. And you, dear reader, I realize that you would recognize, as I do, that this work, I have not come to the end of all of the precepts pertaining to piety, and that I have not said all that can be said, for there is no end to the matter, no limit to one's reflections. But I have said something about each particular component of the Baraita upon which this work has been based. This may serve as a beginning and a gateway to a broader study of these matters, since their structure has been revealed and their paths have been exposed before our eyes, allowing us to walk securely along them. In reference to things of this nature, it has been stated in Mishlei, that's Proverbs 1:5, the learned person will listen and increase his knowledge, and the contemplative one will acquire profundities. And one who seeks to be purified is assisted. It says in Shabbat 104a, for the Eternal will impart wisdom from his mouth, will come knowledge and understanding. Mishlei, that's Proverbs 2:6, to direct each person's paths before his Creator. So we can easily understand that every person needs direction and guidance in accordance with his skills and his occupation, since the path of piety, appropriate for one whose Torah is his vocation, is unsuitable for one who must place himself in the employ of another. And neither of these ways is suitable for one who is engaged in his own business. And this is the case regarding all the other particulars of human affairs in the world. There is a path of piety that is suitable to each and every individual, whatever his vocation. This is not to say that the nature of piety varies, for it is the same for everyone, since its goal is to bring pleasure to the Creator. But in view of the fact that circumstances are always changing, this means leading toward the implementation of the goal must also vary according to the circumstances that prevail. It is possible that someone who, out of necessity, is a simple artisan, may become a completely pious person, like an individual who never stops learning. And it states in, I think it's supposed to be Mishlei, so Proverbs 16:4, the Eternal created everything for his own sake. And it says in 3:6, in all your ways know him, and he will direct your paths. May the Blessed One in his mercy open our eyes through his Torah and guide us in his ways and lead us in his paths, and may we be worthy of glorifying his name and pleasing him. May the glory of the Eternal endure forever. Let the Eternal rejoice in his works. Tehillim, Psalms 104:31. Let Israel rejoice in its Maker. Let the sons of Zion exult in their King. Psalms 149:2. Amen, amen, amen. So, Khatima, so this epilogue, the author says, this time, the RAMCHAL says, this time I will thank the Eternal. Bereshit 29:35, I will sing and chant praise. Tehillim 27:6. To the one whose compassion has helped me until today in publishing my work, Mesillat Yesharim, I have written it for the sake of teaching myself, and I've passed it on to the public so that others of like mind may benefit from it as well. Perhaps through my effort, others will be able to learn from it and will be enriched through it, and thereby I will please my Creator. This will then be my consolation in a parched land. Hosea 13:5. And I will name it Rehovot, open spaces. Bereshit 26:22. May it be the express wish of the Eternal to grant me my share in his Torah, to learn, teach, safeguard, and perform, and may his desire be successfully fulfilled through my effort. Amen. So may it be his will. I must greatly acknowledge one of kindred spirit who has threshed and stored grain together with me, for he is the crown of my head and the seal on my right hand. This is my beloved and my friend, Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs 5:16. My mentor, my leader, and my colleague, Tehillim, Psalms 55:14. I refer to our instructor and teacher, Rabbi Yaakov, the son of Rav Avraham Basan. May the compassionate one watch over him and redeem him. He entered the thick of the battle and gave me the opportunity to attain this objective from the beginning to the end, printing, proofreading, and completing the entire work in perfect form. And second only to him is one whose reputation is distinctive in the councils. Mishlei, that's Proverbs 31:23. Who is lauded with praises, and all that he does is done with good reason. One who is quick and who is appreciated by all the proofreaders, a person who is skilled in his work, whose standing is evident in the assembly of sages. I refer to the lofty sage, our instructor and teacher, Rabbi David, the son of the great, brilliant, and distinguished Rabbi, our instructor and teacher, Rabbi Raphael Meildola. May the compassionate one watch over him and redeem him. May the Eternal bless their wealth and the offering of their hands, based on Deuteronomy 33:11. May they succeed in whatever they do. Theirs will be an eternal joy. May they be sated with sons and bequeath their abundance to their offspring. Tehillim, Psalm 17:14. These are the words of the young man, Moshe, the son of the Honorable Rabbi Yaakov Chaim Luzzatto.